Jason, how are you?
Wonderful.
Enjoying the cold, snowy weather?
It's just starting.
It's starting, right?
Just starting.
Hey, 'tis the season.
That's okay.
Right?
Got the wedding coming up.
That's right. When are you heading
December
out?
31st. We're heading out on the 26th.
Nice.
Shouldn't
the,
say that out loud,
the Crown
but,
Prince, man. The Crown Prince is...
the boy's getting married.
That's it, right? How old's Jordan?
He is 28.
Nice. Perfect, right?
Yeah. Good timing.
Great time,
Good timing,
right?
yeah.
Awesome. Hey, well, I'll be talking to you, but
Yeah.
Jordan will hear this, and Jordan, all the best on your wonderful wedding and your new life together. On today's episode on the podcast here, I want to talk about retirement challenges for Canadians. And Jason, again, we're always getting this, and I came across a survey. They interviewed about 5,000 Canadians, and they asked them about retirement. And of the respondents, 60% of Canadians were really concerned about their retirement. 26% of Canadians were kind of in the middle. They're not really sure how it was going to go. Only about 14% of Canadians were actually confident. So that was a pretty telling survey. So I want to get into some of the challenges facing Canadians right now when it comes to retirement. So again, navigating retirement in Canada comes with its own set of unique challenges, obviously. It's impacting individuals and families alone. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the insights into the financial, the social, and the healthcare aspects of retirement. But, Jason, I think one of the big things right now, we're hearing it all the time, is we've had a really difficult year of inflation, high inflation, even though the government tells us that inflation's running at, 2, 3, 4%. It doesn't seem that way. I mean, gas prices this year were up dramatically, airplane tickets and food. I mean, food alone, right? So there's, inflation and rising living expenses are eroding the purchasing power of many in retirement. And there's three things here that are really affecting Canadians and their retirement cost of living. One is the healthcare cost. Rising healthcare costs, obviously including drugs and long-term care, can really impact the budget. Luckily in Canada, if you are over 65 years old, some of those drugs are covered. But these long-term care homes can be increasingly really difficult for low-income Canadians to meet the budget. You've got the housing cost, huge issue, right? So a lot of people, they've been in their home for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. However, they're seeing their incomes relatively go flat, but they're seeing their property taxes go up. They're seeing their, maybe they've got people coming in doing yard work now. The cost of taking care of the home is putting dramatic pressure on their financial budget. And then, of course, you've got inflation erosion. Inflation erodes the value of savings. And one of the biggest things, too, Jason, is you look at the stock market. It's been fantastic. Investors have seen, great returns for the past couple of years. However, a lot of seniors, are still investing in low interest rate accounts, and they're seeing inflation climb, 5, 6, 7%. But they're not seeing their assets climb. So obviously that's causing them to put pressure on their cost of living.
Yeah, it's funny how we, 5 years ago, we really didn't talk a lot about inflation when it comes to the retirement, our Retire Right program. We always just put in 2% inflation or something like that. But over the last couple of years, when inflation has ran well over 5%, people are starting to understand that, you need to get better rates of return to combat just a 3 to 5% increase in health or in living expenses and food costs and things like that. So,
and you get those investors that say to me, "Hey, I want to buy that 3% GIC," and I say to them, "That's fine. It's 3% before tax, depending on where the money's held. Could be even less than that after tax, but yet." Your cost of your cell phone bill, your cost of your gasoline, the cost of fixing your car, the cost of groceries. And it's funny, right? Like you look at eating out today, and eating out today is for the rich. It's really expensive. Take a family of 4 to a nice, decent restaurant.
Yeah.
You're not getting out of that restaurant under $250.
Exactly. Yeah.
You get a bit of food, a bit of salad. Like it's really changing.
Yeah, it's crazy. One of the other things that has been changing is obviously we're living longer. So the increasing life expectancy has changed the way we look at retirement. And because we're living longer, we also obviously require a larger retirement nest egg to cover the expenses. So today, I read a stat that if you're a 65-year-old couple, there is more than a 50% chance that one of you will live to age 90. So, the old days where you retire at 60, 65, and life expectancy was 75, there's really only a 10-year gap there. But nowadays, if one's going to live to 90, you've got to have enough money to last 25 years. And obviously with that, with the increasing life expectancy, also healthcare costs increase. So as we get older, obviously, longer lifespans usually tend to lead to higher costs in healthcare costs.
And not even healthcare, just to cut in here, but even like dental care, right? Like
Yeah.
a lot of people I find, like
You
I've
don't
talked
think
to a
of
lot
it.
of clients that call me and they want to get their teeth done. They want to get some crowns, some implants. And, we're talking about, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 expenses where those can severely impact one's budget.
Yeah, absolutely. And the third thing about with increasing life expectancy, of course, is financial planning is to ensure, and it's crucial for Canadians to plan for a longer retirement. They've got to have a sufficient savings. The old days of, most workers had a workplace pension. They don't have those anymore, and so they have to rely on their retirement savings. So if they're living longer, they need more to save.
Exactly. And speaking of savings, I mean, we've got, you got volatility in the stock market, obviously. So, you've got fluctuations in the stock market and other investments. Markets, again, when things are good, everybody's happy. When things aren't so good, everybody's kind of sad. And I always say to clients is that historically, if you look at the last 10 years or so, you're probably going to win in the stock market 7, 8 out of the 10 years. But you're going to have those 2 years where things go down. You've got to be able to get through those market downturns. But some of the issues on volatility, you got market fluctuations. Again, markets don't go in a straight line. You and I both wish that if markets just went in a straight line, this would be the greatest job in the world, right?
And easiest.
It's a pretty good job anyway.
Yeah.
However, you have to live with those ups and the downs. You got economic downturns in portfolios over time will have some decline. And then of course you've got, you're eroding your savings. I always get a kick too out of clients that call me and they go, hey, I got my statement in and I'm down like $20,000 this quarter. And the market must have had a bad quarter. And I said, no, the market had a good quarter. You made money, but you're pulling out all this extra money. Yeah. So as you start to spend your money, your portfolio will go down. The number one culprit of this is my father. He calls me and he says, how did I lose $25,000 this year? And I said, you didn't lose it, Dad. You're pulling money out of your portfolio. Right. So when he sees his 2023 and 2024, he starts to have a bit of a fit.
If he's spending it on you, then that and your kids, then that's okay.
Where is he?
Yeah.
Where's he spending it? I haven't seen any of it yet. I want it with a warm hand, not a cold hand. Right?
Exactly.
Other issues in the markets, you've got rising interest rates. And again, we haven't seen rising interest rates right now. We're seeing falling interest rates. So that's actually a good thing for bond returns. And then, of course, you've got inflation. Inflation can erode the real value of your savings. And again, as the real value goes down, you've got to take more and more money out of the portfolio. So again, you've got to be invested. You've got to be well diversified. However, you have to live with the ups and the downs that the market brings forward.
For sure. And we talked a little bit about the idea of healthcare costs increasing because we're living longer. That usually means that we're spending more on healthcare. You've got prescription drugs. You've got long-term care, home care. Those can definitely impact retirement budgets and financial security. You mentioned earlier dental. That's one of the things that we don't really think about. But again, as we're living longer, we might have to deal with crowns and replacement teeth and things like that. So all those things are factors that you have to think about in retirement.
And the big thing, too, is I've seen it from some clients lately is you've got clients live in their home and money's coming in, it's all fine. But now one of the spouses needs to go to an assisted living home. Maybe there's going to be whatever the payment's going to be. And the spouse is saying, I'm living in the home with all the bills. The bills don't go away living in the home, but now I have this other obligation. How does that work? So
Yep.
yeah, there's rising healthcare costs. One of the other key points here in some of the challenges for retirement for Canadians is longevity risk. Again, good financial planning. You can take into account longevity. I always say when I start planning out my retirement, even though most might only use 85 or 90 in the analysis, 85, 90 years of age, try using 100, right? And again, there's lifestyle adjustments. One thing I will say is that, and we mentioned it in the last episode, Jason, which was the golden triangle, is that as you get older, you're going to spend a lot of money in your golden triangle years where you have good health, you have wealth, and you have time. But as my parents have shown me, that once you get into the late 70s, 80s, all of a sudden they don't need for much, right? They don't have a high or heavy clothing budget. They're not traveling a lot. So there are going to be some lifestyle adjustments. So not to fear, over time, your need for income does decrease with age.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the other risks and considerations with the retirement is, and this is near and dear to my heart, is the lack of financial literacy. So most Canadians, or many Canadians, lack the financial knowledge, the skills necessary to make informed decisions about their retirement. They don't understand investment choices. I read a stat the other day, only 39% of Canadians know what the acronym RRSP is. And only 25%, of course, only 25% of Canadians use financial planners. So number one, get to Capital Wealth Management to hire one of the financial planners. But it was just, I found that incredible that less than 50% know what the acronym RRSP, which is the most common one. And then you add in ones like, TFSAs and the FHSAs. I can imagine what the literacy or how many people understand those. But that's a big reason why there's so many risks involved in retirement is the lack of financial literacy. They don't understand investment choices. So if you don't understand the choices, then of course it can be difficult to know how to spend and how to save for retirement. Of course, as I mentioned, there's a lack of financial literacy in retirement planning, and debt management, which has become a big topic of our planning firm now, is because a lot of people, years ago, not a lot of people had debt in retirement, but in the last 5 or 10 years, we've seen a big jump of people having mortgages going into retirement.
Well, I had a client of mine call me just a few months ago, and the kids have now left the home, so they're empty nesters. The mortgage is down to a very low level. Nice home, obviously. However, he talked about a cottage, and I said, so, I get it. I understand the cottage allure. Sounds sexy. It's great. You go up north, you got a great place. However, how does that affect the financial plan, right? And, if you have $500 or $600 or $1 million in the sidelines, that it's not required for all of these different, for your years of retirement, then go knock your socks off. But I said, are you going to really take on a mortgage for your home at this stage in life? So again, understanding debt, like you really have to, the day you call it a career, I don't care if you're a teacher, a civil servant, whatever line of work you come from, like if you can get into retirement without any debt, then the probability of success goes up dramatically. Yeah. But if you get into retirement and you've got a mortgage of $300,000 or $400,000, you've got a couple car loans, you've got a line of credit, it makes it really difficult to be successful in those next 10 to 15 years where you're going to require a lot of income. And the last key point here on some of the challenges facing Canadians in retirement, Jason, is this is a scary one. This is the caregiver burden, right? So many Canadians, particularly women, are taking on the role of caregivers for aging parents or spouses. I've got a client right now, her and her sister have taken on the role of managing the mom. The mom has some dementia, some Alzheimer's, and it is a full-time 24/7, 365-day managing the mom and the issue. You've got financial strain because if you're a caregiver around the clock to your parents or an aging parent, then obviously you can't work as much. Yep. You're much more exhausted. You've got a massive time commitment because sometimes parents and their health, it's a 24-hour-a-day job. And then of course you've got the emotional and the physical toll. So I've seen it firsthand with these clients, and to hear their story about how there's a rotation. I'll take one night with mom, you take one night. So, you know, my clients, they're only getting 3 or 4 days a week of good sleep, because 3 or 4 days a week they're having to take care of the mother waking up, not knowing where she's at, having these issues, wondering, fearful, anxiety. It's a whole new world. And I think the key thing is that, you know, Jason, we talk about this is, you know, I'm always amazed at people that have wealth. You know, what's the secret, right? It's a pretty simple. It's not a hidden secret. It's you know, live on a certain part of your paycheck, put money away for the future, invest wisely, make a return that's acceptable, understand about debt, understand cash flow, and then have a plan. And when it comes to retirement, you know, understanding how to decumulate, how to take money out of these different investments, what to use, what not to use. It's worth, you know, the small fee you pay. Yep. We know it, right? The return on investment is always going to be, you know, 3 to 4 times whatever you pay us in a fee. However, you know, you don't do your own, you know, dental work. You don't do your own open heart surgery. You don't cut your own hair in most cases. Why would you do your own planning for retirement?
Agreed.
Right? Yeah, so,
agreed.
Jason Pollock, happy holidays.
Thank you.
December.
You as well.
All the best
Enjoy.
to you and the family, and have a great trip away to the big wedding of the century.
Yeah,
right.
You got that right.
See, they call it. You know why they call it that? It takes you a century to pay it off.
You're not far off.
Debt, yeah. Just write that big check.
I'm coming to you
say, Jordan, there's your inheritance.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, buddy.
Yeah. I'm going to die with zero, like our previous podcast. I'm dying with zero.
That's hilarious, right? I'm lucky. I've got hopefully another 8 to 10 years before my kids come back and say, hey, Dad, I need to have a big fancy wedding.
Start
and buy
saving.
a house. Yeah, exactly, right? So, again, all the best over the holiday season.